Before we begin, I want you to consider a question. What if the thing you've been trying to fix about yourself isn't actually broken? Today's episode is a little different. What you are about to hear was originally recorded as a live event, where women from around the world gathered to explore powerful truth. What if the struggles you've been carrying aren't evidence you're broken, but signs of patterns your nervous system learned to survive? If you've ever wondered why you keep repeating the same reactions, relationships, or behaviors despite knowing better, this conversation is for you. So today we're going to be covering You're Not Broken, You're Patterned, and why this can be so subtle, so under the surface, and we may not even recognize what's going on until we kind of hit that point where it blows up in our face. So before we get into today, I just want to ground us in this moment so that we can leave all the things that are pulling us away from that, and we can really just center ourselves in this moment. So what I want you to do is just, you're going to plant both your feet on the ground, feel the surface of the ground on your feet, take a deep breath in through your nose. Slowly exhale through your mouth. We're going to do one more of those. So deep breath in through your nose. Take another little sip through your nose. And slowly exhale through your mouth. Now I want you to take anything that's on your mind, anything that happened before you came here, or anything that you're anticipating having to do after this. And I want you to imagine that you're putting it all into a box. So take that box in front of you, put it all in there, and then close the box. You're actually going to take that box and shrink it down. Like it's so small that it's insignificant. And you're going to place that box to the side. So everything that you have that you know you need to do, and things, all the shoulds, they're still there. But right now, this is your moment to be with yourself and give yourself that gift. You've come here, and allow yourself to be fully present for this moment. So right now, we're in this moment. You're grounded, you're here. And I want you to just put your hand on your heart, say to yourself, I'm here with me now. So much of the world pulls our attention, pulls our energy, that when you have these moments just to be with yourself, it's such a gift. So just allow yourself to sit with that. If you want to close your eyes and just say, I'm here with me now. And just allow yourself to be there. And now I want to share, because today's session is about you're not broken, you're patterned. And this can be so subtle that we often miss this or think that there's something wrong with ourselves. And I want to share a quick story about something I experienced in seeing this in myself. And I would always pride myself with being like the strong person. I could hold it all together, make sure that I'm centered and grounded for everybody else. But I would come home and just feel like completely depleted. Like it took it all out of me to show up in that way. And I started to think, like, what is wrong with me? Like, why do I always, sounds like you, yeah. I'm like, why do I always feel like this? And I'd be like, oh, okay, all right, I gotta like muster up the courage and the ability to like show up like that again. And I'd be like doing that at work. I'd be doing that in every situation. And I started to notice that when I was around certain people, especially, I would change the way that I showed up. So I would silence my own truth, and I knew I was doing it. Even though I continued to do it, I would notice tension in a room and feel like it was my job to smooth it over and think like, oh no, did I do something? Did I say something? I would take it on as mine. And I would shrink myself in a way to feel like, let me just not be so boisterous. Let me just let them kind of set the tone of the room, because I don't want to disrupt anything or cause a conflict or have anything kind of come out more than what it should be. I just needed it to be harmonious outside of me. And what I noticed in that time is that I was losing myself in that I needed them to be okay in order for me to be okay. And unfortunately, it kind of blew up in my face in this in many moments, but that's when I started to realize like I'm showing up in a certain way because I'm trying to seek safety. And I don't have that safety within me. So I'm trying to keep everything safe outside of me so that I can feel at peace, so that I can feel okay, so I can feel comfortable, so that they don't feel uncomfortable and then I'm comfortable. And it was this pattern I just continued to get in over and over and over again. And it became very frustrating. And I, again, thought there was something wrong with me. But this is what I want you to take from this, is that if you're relating to any of this, there is nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. You are someone who has become conditioned to show up in a certain way because your system is seeking safety. And this is something that you've learned and it's subconscious, which means that it's below the surface. So it doesn't mean that you go into that room and you're like, I'm going to stay small today. I'm going to stay silent. I'm going to keep my truth hidden so that everyone's comfortable. You're not consciously making these decisions. You're just showing up in that way to feel comfortable, to make everyone else feel comfortable. This is just the way that you show up because it's what you learned. And this is a pattern that works in the short run because likely you are the one that everyone feels comfortable around. You're the one that everyone depends on. You're the easy to get along with person. Oh, you're so flexible. Oh, she's such a go-getter. She's so dependable. You likely hear that. And so you feel like, okay, this must be working. And the peacekeeper, that's another one. Yes, exactly. And so it feels like it's working when you're in the thick of it. And however, when you look in the long run and you are in those moments by yourself, behind closed doors, when no one's looking, you know exactly how you feel. You know exactly what you're experiencing. You know that you're the one who has to pull yourself up again and be able to regulate yourself so that you can continue to show up in that role. And it almost feels like you're balancing all these things and you can never let anything drop because you're the one who's supposed to be showing up that way. Yeah, the dependable one. Exactly, Michelle. That's exactly that role. And it keeps it going because the thing is that people are depending on you to show up that way. And your system is teaching you that there's a sense of safety and certainty when you show up in that way. And if you deviate from that, if you happen to say no, or I can't make it that day, or that doesn't work for me, or you speak your truth, it feels constricting. It feels like, oh my gosh, like I can't do that because what could happen? What would that relationship dynamic look like if I show up differently? So this is a pattern that you've learned over time is that if you show up this way, then you're safe from the outside in. But this is where this breaks down because essentially what you're doing is you're eroding your essence to fit in the mold of the world or fit in the mold of that relationship. And over time, you may not even notice it when you're doing it, but over time, you start to feel like you're losing yourself or that you don't really know yourself or that you feel empty or that you feel exhausted. And you're wondering, like, when is my time to actually feel the way I want to feel? And so today I want to give you a practice to start to recognize those moments because what happens is that you're likely going to get into a situation, whether it's at work or a relationship or something during the day where you override yourself. And this is what I was sharing about last week is that it's not that you're lost, you're actually not listening to yourself. You're listening to the needs and the expectations of the world or certain people. And so you're silencing yourself. Today, I'm going to guide you through a practice of how you can recognize when you are abandoning yourself and when you are being loyal to yourself. And it's in that contrast that you start to learn that you have a choice in that moment. Because likely, if you're here and if this is resonating, it may feel like there isn't a choice in it. And that maybe you might not even recognize those moments that you are overriding yourself because it's become so familiar to you. So, what I want you to do in this moment, we're just going to again take a deep breath and allow ourselves to sit there for a moment, calm our system down, and take one more deep breath. Okay, and I want you to bring into your mind a moment where someone asked you something and you didn't speak up for yourself. Maybe a moment where you said yes, but you really wanted to say no and you regretted it. I want you to think of a moment where you kind of shapeshifted yourself and adapted yourself to the room to make other people comfortable. I want you to think of a moment where you went above and beyond, even though you really didn't want to because you felt like you had to. Bring in a moment that feels like that into your awareness. I'll give you a moment just to sit with that. And when you have that moment, I want you to put yourself back in that moment and think about the situation. How did it feel? And make it feel as real as possible, as if you were again back in that situation where you're overriding yourself. And once you have that moment and once you feel it, I want you to just notice in your body what you feel. So notice any parts that may feel tight or heavy or whatever you feel in your body from head to toe. It could be any place. Typically, you feel this more in like the stomach, chest, shoulder area for most people, but again, it's very individualized. You may feel it in a very specific part. But I want you to just notice this. Without shame, you're just bringing awareness to that. And if you are noticing this and you want to share this in the comments, let me know where you're feeling this or what you're feeling if you feel comfortable to do so. Okay, and then now we're going to shift to a moment where you stood up for yourself. You spoke up for yourself. It could even be something as simple as deciding on a restaurant and you really wanted Chinese that night and anger in your chest and clenching teeth. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Chest, stomach, yeah. Eyes and ears, yeah, interesting. Again, notice because these are very individualized. So notice for yourself. You may even want to write this down so that you are noticing your specific body's pattern and how it's speaking to you. Thank you so much for sharing. And again, that's that part that you want to notice what your body's telling you when you have those thoughts. Now we're going to shift to the contrast. Again, you're going to notice that, yeah, chest and throat. Yep. And now you're going to notice a time where you stood up for yourself. Again, like I was saying, it could even be a restaurant where you really wanted Chinese that night and someone else wanted Italian. You're like, you know what? I am going to say I want Chinese. I'm not just going to go along with Italian. Like it could be those subtle moments. It could be a moment where you were expected to take care of something and you're like, you know what? I had it scheduled. I was going to go for a 5-minute walk. I'm going to go for that 5-minute walk. It could be a moment where you said, you know, I don't feel right with this and I'm not okay with this. Or it could be a moment you said no and you actually meant no and you allowed yourself to have that space to be with yourself. Or a moment you just checked in with yourself of like, well, what do I need? So I want you to think of something, one of those moments where you were with yourself, where you did check in with yourself. And again, it could be so subtle and so small. So I'm going to give you a moment to anchor into that. And bring yourself back to that moment. What were you thinking? What were you feeling? And again, notice in your body, how do you feel in your body when you think of that moment, the moment you stood up for yourself, the moment you said no when you meant no, the moment you didn't want to over explain yourself, you just allowed yourself to be, or you checked in with yourself. Notice how that feels in your body. And if you feel comfortable, share, I'd love to hear where you feel that and what you're experiencing. And again, this is a little bit lighter, taller. Yep. Yeah, guilt. Yes, that. Thank you for sharing that. That's my next thing I was going to talk about because it's not always comfortable. Felt like fireworks. Yeah, chest and back and neck. Interesting. Yeah, like yeah, negative feeling in chest, positive feeling in stomach. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, so again, this is so individualized, and I really appreciate everyone who shared because you can see how other people are experiencing it, but it's really important to notice how you experience it because your body is going to speak in a very unique way. And that's your own personal language of your body that you want to start to get to know. Because When we experience moments of overriding ourselves, we often dismiss our body's signals, we downplay them, we ignore them. So, this is a moment to now check in and start to feel what you're feeling and allow that to sit and learn about your body signals again. And so when you've noticed that, you may even want to write these down, those contrasting feelings that you noticed in your body, because it's likely and mostly inevitable that today you're going to have a moment where you're going to be faced with that choice of overriding yourself or staying with yourself. And this is what I would love for you to do in that moment, that we often want to just react and respond really quickly. But if you can take a moment and pause, take a deep breath, and then check in with yourself, check in with your body, and ask yourself, what am I feeling with this? And notice if it's what you felt when you were in the category of overriding yourself, or notice if it's in the category of being loyal to yourself. And that will help direct how you move forward by listening to your body rather than what that person or situation may be telling you or the expectations of it. So it's coming back home to yourself, learning to listen to yourself, learning to integrate that into your daily routine. And that's how you start to shift from abandoning yourself in situations to start to being loyal to yourself, and where you check in before you ever check out, and where you check in with yourself before you check in with someone else. Because it's likely, if you did resonate with what I was sharing in the beginning, that you often will make decisions based on what you think the other person wants. You'll filter out your own self through their lens. So, how will they perceive me? What do they desire of me in this moment? What's expected of me? What's the role that I've played for them? And that's typically where decisions get made. So this is shifting it to now deciding, what do I want? How do I feel? How is this landing for me? And again, these subtleties, like I said, even something so simple as a restaurant decision, that's truly when you start to build up that muscle and rewire your brain to choose yourself rather than choosing things or people or situations outside yourself. So, what I want you to take from this is that throughout the day, today or through this week, I want you to notice those times. Notice them and bring awareness to when you're immediately saying yes, or you're adapting how you're speaking because of who you're with, or you're trying to smooth the room over, or you feel like it's your responsibility. And I want you to notice those moments and then pause and then do this quick scan of like, what do I feel in my body and what is my body saying to me in my unique language? That's what I want you to take from this. I want to come back to that guilt. Yes. Yeah. So thank you again for saying that, because this is something I want to bring awareness to, because when you are in the same patterns, it feels familiar. It feels safe, even though it's not really serving you. But you'll continue to do that because it feels more comfortable in the long run that you continue on the same patterns. And so that we usually think of that as being like, okay, well, this feels more comfortable than the uncomfortable no to someone. But this is where I want to reframe this for you, because guilt will come up, and a lot of people will think of guilt as if they are doing something wrong. And guilt is not an indication that you're doing something wrong. Guilt is an indication that you're changing the pattern and that your system is learning something new. So when you feel that guilt come up, you can recognize that this is just part of the process, and guilt will come up because guilt is going to try to pull you back into what your nervous system thinks is safe. And that's its primary job, is safety. And what it learned as safety of outsourcing that to other people and situations is why it's going to pull you back with that guilt and try to keep you in those patterns. But if you can recognize, like, okay, guilt is present and it's okay to be there, but I'm not going to let guilt drive the bus. Guilt can be there, but guilt has to take a passenger seat. I get to drive the bus now, and it can be there and I can notice it. And I know what it's trying to do. It's trying to keep me safe and in those old patterns, but I know where those old patterns take me. And this is my chance and my choice to choose something different in this moment. And if you can recognize that, allow guilt to be there and see what guilt is trying to do in that moment, but not let it pull you into those patterns, that's when you truly start to rewire your brain for something new. So again, thank you so much for bringing up that guilt because that is a huge part of that. So that's when you can recognize like it's okay to protect yourself. It's okay to say no in these moments. It's okay to allow yourself to feel what you're feeling. And it's okay to choose differently from this moment forward. So, what I want you to do is bring awareness to those moments, take the pause, and allow yourself to choose something differently from this point forward. And again, that awareness is actually the first part of you becoming a more self-loyal version of yourself. And so if you can allow yourself to bring awareness, but without the shame, without thinking that something's wrong with you or that you're broken, that's the key to it. Loving, compassionate awareness of, I see these patterns. Okay, I'm grateful I see these patterns in me because what that means is that you're getting your power back. It means that you're not going to be stuck in those patterns because now you get to see it and you get to choose it in a different way. And that's the most powerful thing that you can do. So when you see the patterns, it may be uncomfortable because what I experience is that there's a lot of grief around that, in that you may have spent 10, 20, 30, 40 plus years living in those patterns and seeing how much of you has eroded in that process and feeling like, oh my gosh, I spent my whole life living for someone else, or I spent my whole life choosing something outside myself, and now I don't even know who I am. So there's a lot of grief in that, and just allow again that grief to be there. But also know that this is the moment you're taking your power back to choose differently. And this is the moment you get to live for you. And this is the most liberating thing you can do, is to go from self-abandonment to self-loyalty. So I want to thank you all for being here today. This has just been an honor to share this because this is something I'm so passionate about. This is something I have lived, I have breathed, I have seen in myself, and I see in so many people. And I just want so deeply for you to realize how strong your personal essence is and to not let anything erode that from this point forward. If something in today's conversation resonated deeply, if it felt like someone finally put into words an experience you've been carrying for years, I want to share the next step. I created a free self-abandonment audit to help you uncover the hidden patterns that may be keeping you disconnected from your own needs, truth, and inner wisdom. Because self-abandonment doesn't always look obvious. Sometimes it looks like overthinking, people-pleasing, guilt, resentment, chronic exhaustion, or knowing what you need but struggling to choose it. And if you're ready to go deeper, my Self-Respect Reset will help you rebuild self-trust, regulate your nervous system, set boundaries with greater confidence, and begin creating a life that's aligned with who you truly are. You can find both of the resources in the show notes. Because healing isn't about becoming someone new, it's about coming back to yourself.